Hi guys, welcome back to another video on Doing It Daily, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you my IUD experience. So it's really for my female subs who are seeking birth control methods, options, and you come across a few. This is just to really help you to make that decision. And also my male subs, I mean, you can watch it with your girlfriend or your wife to just help her make that decision based on the information that I present. So I hope you enjoy. So let's talk. Alright, so first things first, I would like to make a disclaimer that I'm not a medical professional in any way, shape, or form. I'm just speaking about my experience with having the IUD because I've had it for almost 2 years now. So I'm just really sharing my experience with you, what it has been. Alright, and if you see me looking down, I actually made notes to kind of help me stay on track so I'm not rambling all over the place. Alright, so first, let us define the acronym. What does IUD mean? So it's an intrauterine device, and its purpose is to prevent pregnancy by stopping the sperm from reaching a fertilized egg. Now, there are two types of IUDs. You have the hormonal kind and the non-hormonal. Now, the hormonal kind would include the Mirena, the Kyleena, Lilita, and Skylar. And then the non-hormonal one is called the Copper T/Paragard. That is the one that I have. So the Copper IUD is considered one of the most effective methods of emergency contraception. So studies say that if you take it within 120 hours of having unprotected sex, 120 hours would equate to about 5 days of having unprotected sex, it would actually stop the pregnancy from happening. So now I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons. The pros being the advantages of having the Copper IUD, and the cons being the disadvantages of having it. So the pros. Now, the first thing is that it's non-hormonal, meaning that there are absolutely no hormones in there. Now, that's a plus for me because I've never been a fan of hormones, and it's just not something that I would ever want to try because of the uncertainty that surrounds it. And I have female friends who actually use birth control methods with the hormones, and I don't really like the effect that it has on them. But mind you, you have persons who actually take hormone-laced birth control methods and it works absolutely fine for them. But in Jamaica, we have a saying that says, puss and dog not have the same luck, which means what might work for you might not work for me. So it's just not something that I'd want to fool around. So that's the first pro for me, is that it's hormone free. Now, the second pro is that I still have a regular period. So it ties into my first point because it's hormone free. It doesn't mess with the regularity of my period. So my period still comes on a monthly basis at the same time, and nothing has changed really as it pertains to regularity. The third pro is that it's stress-free and low maintenance. Because it's so tiny, you can barely feel it. It's like you almost forget that it's there. It's not like when you're taking the pill and you have to take it every day at a certain time, so you have to ensure that you remember. You don't have that stress with the Copper T. It is really just a get up and go kind of thing. And as I said, it's so tiny, you don't feel it. Sometimes you forget that it's there. Pro number 4 is that it is almost effective as abstinence in a sense. But in all honesty, the only way to avoid pregnancy entirely is to abstain from sex. But as I said earlier, the Copper IUD is considered to be 99.9% effective. Pro number 5 is that it's ready when you are, so you can be very spontaneous when it comes on to having intercourse with your partner. I mean, as I say, you don't have to worry about it, and it offers contraception for up to 12 years, because you have some of the hormone IUDs where you have to have it changed for 3 years, 3 to 5, 10 years at a time. But with the copper T, it actually stays in place for up to 12 years and you don't have to have it changed. It lasts you up until that time. Now, pro number 6, which is one of my favorite ones, is that it's reversible. So anytime you're ready to expand your family or to even start a family, you just go to your OBGYN and you have them remove it. And as long as you don't have any medical complications or underlying issues, you can literally start having a family. All right, so now we're moving on to the cons, which are the disadvantages that I have experienced while using this method. All right, so the first one is cramping and spotting. Now, this happens prior to my period, like a week in advance before my period comes. I start to experience light cramping and light spotting. It never happened before when I wasn't on it, and I realize that it's happening now. But I kind of don't mind because it gives me a heads up when my period is coming, so I know that, okay, so my period is coming after all of this happens, basically. You also experience cramping and spotting after insertion. So it normally happens like a couple days after, you start to experience light cramping and light spotting as soon as you have it inserted. I started experiencing that as soon as I had it inserted. All right, so the second one would be increased blood flow. So my menses, my blood flow has definitely increased. And this seems to be a common disadvantage because when I was doing my research prior to getting this, it was a common factor as to being a disadvantage for most women. But I found a way to deal with it, and I will definitely share that in another video. But I have experienced increased blood flow. Next is that it can slip out of place. This rarely happens, but you have some persons who experience the IUD being lodged into getting lost in the uterus because that's where it's placed. So some persons, they experience it being lost in the uterus, or it slips into your vagina partially or completely. But if it's that you are experiencing any of that, you need to see a gynecologist as soon as possible because that cannot be good. Another disadvantage is that you have to have it inserted by your gynecologist or a health care professional, because most birth control methods allow you to be in control of the intake. This is definitely not like that. You need to see a gynecologist to have them do the insertion for you. So the procedure is really similar to getting a pap smear done. It's very quick, like literally 10 minutes if so long, and all you feel is like a flick on your uterus, just a flick, and that's it. Another disadvantage is that it does not protect you against STDs. Like every other birth control method, it doesn't. The only one that does is a condom. And if you know that you want to have the IUD installed and you want to have casual sex, I would strongly urge you to still use a condom. So condoms aren't only good for preventing pregnancies, but they're good for protecting you against STDs and HIV, etc. So wrap it up. So why is it that I decided to go ahead with this method? Because I wanted a non-hormonal option, because I wanted to get back in the groove of having sex with my husband post-baby, and this just seemed like the best method to take advantage of, to control the possible outcome of having unprotected sex. And most importantly, because it's hormone free and I was breastfeeding at the time, it was very important for that to be a key factor to avoid transmission to my baby through breastfeeding. Now, I did my research, I looked at all the reviews, all the pros and cons, and I had the discussion with my gynecologist. So if this is a method that you are considering, I strongly urge you, have that discussion with your gyno and say to them, say, hey, I'm considering this based on my medical history. Do you recommend it being something that I get? You know, have the discussion with them and just see where it goes from there. And I also wanted to share that we explored the option of using condoms, but then I started to have a bad reaction towards them, so we decided to opt for this alternative, which I don't regret, because based on my pros and cons, you can actually see why I decided to go ahead with it, because to me the pros definitely outweigh the cons. So if you're living in Jamaica, I don't mind sharing the details of my gynecologist with you. Her name is Dr. Jody Jarrett, and she works at Gynae Associates, which is on Tangerine Place in Halfway Tree. She's very flexible. She shares information with you, and most importantly, she's very accessible, and she made the process very seamless for me, because even though I did my research, I presented everything to her and she walked me through everything. So if you're looking for a gynecologist, I will definitely leave her information in the description box and you can check her out. So that brings it to the end of my video. It was a bit TMI, but I hope you learned a lot from it. So feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and tune in for my next video. Thank you so much for watching. It's really good having you guys here again on Doing It Daily, and I'll see you in the other video. Bye.